why does strength training help your running?
Prime example is, right, as people get older, they say they're going to have bad knees because they run. Their knees get bad because their quads, hamstrings, calves, and anterior tib are no longer strong enough because they have not put in the supportive strength training to support that knee. So then all of a sudden, femur is mashing on tibia. We lose meniscus, and we end up having knee pain. So everybody thinks the joint is what's wearing out, but if we keep our quads, hamstrings, glutes strong, that force going through your leg is going to be absorbed by big, strong muscles rather than tiny little joints.
Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome to Catalyst for a Change podcast, where you get to speak with your professional health and fitness team. My name is Jim Adams. I'm the owner of Catalyst Personal Training in University City, and I'm here with another member of your professional health and fitness team, Dr. Brennan Donahue, who runs Donahue Chiropractic. And you guys are located in Shrewsbury?
You got it. Yep.
Okay. In Shrewsbury, right off Watson Road. And Brendan is the man. When I need soft tissue or ART, he's who I go to. And he always keeps me straight. As he just told me, they're more than a pop shop. They do a lot more. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. But Brendan, welcome to the show, Doc.
Appreciate it, Jim. Love sitting down and talking like this.
Yeah, same here. So I noticed that you were doing several posts on the SFMA. So you want to tell the listeners what the SFMA is and why you do it, what it does, and how it helps people?
Yeah, I think knowing that it's a selective functional movement assessment, right? Assessment kind of letting us know what area might not be moving well and what areas are moving well. And application is, there's many different points that we can use this, right? I think the first thing we need to know is that it's 7 movements that we can reproduce over and over again as treatment plan goes along, right? I think when we come in with pain, we focus right on that area. Well, what we need to know is that area might not be the pain generator, right? It might be the location of what we feel, but it might not be the area that is actually causing the main issue. And I kind of use the example of, let's say, a squat, right? Hey, we can't squat down deep. We can't go low enough. Everybody points to the low back and hips, but do we ever assess the ankle? Do we have enough dorsiflexion to be able to squat down? And so that's where we use this assessment on all our new patients when they come in, as long as there's not true trauma, acute pain, and that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, like a major injury. Yeah, because we use the functional movement assessment for the same thing, because it allows us to look at the body's movement in a systemic approach instead of an isolating a joint or maybe one source of pain, but you look at it from how everything is working together, because that is what determines whether or not you're going to have some dysfunction or not. And I know the SFMA, Gray Cook and Lee Burton, who came up with those two, they created the SFMA, the selective functional movement assessment for medical professionals such as yourself. And then they have the functional movement screen for people who do not have that medical degree, but still want to look at the quality of people's movement and how they can improve it. So how do you use I like that you use the SFMA because it's an assessment, because that's my biggest pet peeve is when you walk into a place and they say, oh, let's just hop you on the table. Or if you walk into a gym and like, okay, let's put you on the squat rack and see what you can throw up. That's just begging for trouble, correct? So why do you need an assessment to look at your clients?
Yeah, I think it's the way we raise the bar as a whole, right? We all want to raise together, right? I think I tell people I could put anybody down on my table and make their neck or back pop, and then it's a complete roll of the dice. We're playing craps on whether it's going to help or not. So I like that it's something that is reproducible. We do it on day one, even though I bet you see this with your clients. People want the quick fix, right? They probably come to you and they want to get they want to work out and get in shape in 2 weeks somehow. They have a wedding coming up, and you just kind of, your eyes go googly, right? You're like, that's not going to happen. And
Right.
so I also take that time on day one to say, hey, let's establish a great baseline. Let's do our exam, slow the roll down, not jump into treatment. That way, as we go, we can watch progress be made on a larger scale. It's not just, I hurt here, let's fix here. It's, I hurt here, but I move like crap through your whole back. And so let's focus on that.
Yeah. And I like that it is 7 screens that are reproducible, because it gives you baseline measurements on day one, but it also gives you a tool to measure progress, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. To see if what you're doing is actually working, which is what we do when we do our reassessments. When clients come in, we do the FMS as part of the assessment. And then when they finish the program cycle, we do a reassessment, complete reassessment, and we do the FMS again, and then compare notes to see what's improving and what's not. Do you guys, I assume you do the same thing with SFMA?
We sure do. And I really, when we start breaking it out, it's, if somebody comes in pain, right, we use orthopedic and neurological testing, right? Localized exam of that region. When that pain goes away, we then get to drop down and start doing a movement assessment, right? And as that starts to clear up and we start becoming more functional, that's when we can start working with trainers and PTs and other people on, hey, this person's cleared all the SFMA. Let's go back into the FMS now. And now we go where you jump in and let's do the FMS. And then you put together a program of, this is how we get stronger. And so you can see the continuum of pain, assessment, screen, fitness, long-term results and health improvements.
Yeah, I like that. I like that quite a bit. And then I know you talked about look at, so when you, what makes you determine or helps you determine like the course of treatment for a client? Like, say they come in and you do the SFMA in your assessment. How do you know? And I know this is the worst question to ask. It's like asking, how do I get in shape? Well, there's so many variables, right? But like, if you can kind of give us an idea of like when okay, this is soft tissue, or this is an adjustment, or maybe a combo of two. So how do you figure that out?
Yeah, it gets a little complicated, right? But I
Yeah.
think starting to know like pathophysiology, right? That's a fancy way of just simply saying, what was the mechanism of injury? What tissue was involved and how long does it take to heal? Um, and it's different on all scales, right? Is it a sprain? Is it a strain? And then we know the continuum of grade 1, 2, 3. So that's why the assessment becomes so important, because that all plays into, hey, we might have to start it 2 times a week for 3 weeks if we really want to get this better. But if you put in the work, I promise we'll taper off, and it's not, I don't understand 2 or 3 times a week for 4 months. I think it's just a little extreme. And I haven't seen that in the research as to why that might be beneficial. So there's no, if me and you could sit down and figure out the golden answer to that question, we would help a lot of people,
Right.
but it's putting into understanding, was there a mechanism of injury? Was there some type of traumatic involvement here? If not, was it an overuse, right? And then overuse, is it an athletic overuse or a postural overuse? And then how aggressive will this person be on at-home exercise programs? Right. And so
Mhm.
the people who are willing to put in the work get better faster. And then there's some people who they don't want to put in the work at home, and they tell me that right off the bat, I'm going to be your worst patient, but I'll show up every time you say treatment in your office will work. That becomes hard, because then it's just a crutch at that point, right? We don't want to become reliant on always doing manual care. Sometimes it needs to be at home care that helps that patient get over the hump.
Yeah, at some point, and I tell this to our clients too, whether you're they're a patient of yours or a client of mine, at some point you have to take some responsibility for your health and fitness, right? So you have to take some kind of active part. You're not a car that's going into a shop that's, my catalytic converter is bad, I'm going to go get a new one, I'm going to be good as new. It doesn't work like that, especially as you get older. I mean,
Right.
you have to do a little bit more maintenance on that old Buick to keep it running smooth, correct? Did I lose you?
You froze up there. There we go.
Okay. All right. Did you catch that last question?
I did not.
Okay. So what I was saying is that whether they're a patient of yours or a client of mine, at some point they have to take some responsibility, some ownership of their health and fitness at some point. Even if you're getting a coach or going to a doc and getting treatment, it's not like a car where you can go in and say, hey, my catalytic converter is bad, I'm going to get a new one, I'm going to be good as new. It just doesn't work like that. Especially as you get older, you have to do a little bit more maintenance to keep that Buick running smooth, correct?
I agree completely. And, I think a piece that we haven't hit on this assessment side is a lot of people go to their primary care physician for a yearly physical, right?
Hmm.
We use the word physical, and unfortunately, primary cares are swamped right now. And is it really a physical, or is it, hey, how's your blood pressure? How's your weight? Let's send you for blood work, right? I don't
Hmm.
classify that necessarily as a full physical.
Hmm.
So that's where I like using this. Hey, doc, when should I come back? I'm feeling great. I'm moving well. Hey, let's follow up next year. Let's run through our assessment. Let's see if anything's changed. And now all of a sudden we're setting a standard of care of they might not need me right now, which is fine. But hey, in a year, let's do a checkup. If you pass with flying colors, guess what? I'll see you in a year again. You're moving well. Everything you're doing at home is moving great. Or they come in that year and all of a sudden their assessment, like we start finding these little quirks that could potentially lead to bigger issues. We clean that up really quick and then we ship them out.
Hmm.
So it's also my way of helping people know that we're starting to fade as we get older into a position where we could potentially become injured,
Hmm.
or we follow up this checkup and hey, you continue to look well. And so hypothetically, you should be staying. I don't like to use the word pain free, but you should be functioning well. You should be able to wash your hair, get dressed, bend down and put your socks on and things like that.
Yeah, it's just maintaining that standard of movement, and like you said, having that baseline measurement so you can see kind of where you are in that process and following up. And going back to what we were saying earlier, like treating the human body as in a systemic way versus isolating. The example that I use all the time is, say you have a limited shoulder range of motion, but say you have an activity or job where you have to reach over your head all the time. Well, you're still going to do it, but you're going to maybe do this, right?
Yeah.
And do that because you can't get that range of motion from your. And if you're just listening to this, I apologize. uh, check out the YouTube channel, and then you can see all the visual stuff. But all of a sudden, oh, my back is hurting me. So then they go see you. You look at the back. Oh yeah, the back's good. Oh, let's get it all geared up and strong and rehabbed and everything. Or they go to a physical therapist. Now the back's good. They're ready to go back right back here because there was no systemic assessment to see, hey, you know what, your shoulder range of motion is lacking, and maybe if we improve that, then maybe we can take some of the stress off your low back. So I mean, I think that's a prime example of looking at the body's movement in a systemic way so that you can not only find the source of the pain like you said, but also prevent it from coming back.
Yeah. And that's a prime example because that person will come back 2 months later and they'll be like, oh, it happened again. I threw out my back. I don't know what happened. And I like the term that uh, Greg Cook uses, and it's regional interdependence, right? So we're looking at regions independently to see, is this moving well or is it not? And that's how we find, hey, in fact, your low back keeps going out because you have to compensate all the way through your chain. So
Mhm.
yeah, I just think it's a great tool that when utilized in the right way can help a lot of people.
Yeah. And then you mentioned the squat, the majority of people that I do the FMS on cannot squat. They got all kinds of, I mean, I see it and it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just things start, the wheels start falling off as soon as they try to squat, and I see it, and I don't know about the SFMA, but I know in the FMS when people come in, they want to ace that mother, so they're trying, but you can't fake you can't fake good movement. Either you have it or you don't, right? So when I see people squat and I see either, their hips are weak or their core is not kicking it or not staying engaged, like you mentioned, the ankle mobility, all of those things you can see just in a squat. But what Gray Cook and Lee Burton, the guys who invented this, said is like, never judge it on one screen, right? You got to do all of them so that you have a complete picture, correct? So then you're
Yeah,
looking at the
that's such
complete picture instead of going, oh, aha, that's it. Because then you get kind of a confirmation bias, right?
Yep. Yep. And I think that's what it helps elevate the exam in a practitioner's office. Because if they come in with neck pain, oh, they turn their head, guess what? It's going to reproduce neck pain no matter what. But is that in fact where we need to start? Or can we start in an area that might not hurt and actually clean that up and see if this gets better? And
Yeah.
I bet you do the same with the squat, right?
Hmm.
You don't just put them with a bar on their back and say, keep going lower. You're eventually going to get better at your squat. Guess what'll happen? They're going to blow out their back first, aren't they? And
Correct.
you break that down and start, I bet you doing on tall kneeling, right? Or even
Uh-huh.
quadruped, so you start breaking that down and
Hmm.
that is how, and then all of a sudden 2 months from now, you have them do that movement again and a light bulb goes off and their eyes get all big because they can squat down and the movement's way better. So
Yeah, absolutely. Because like you said, that like to squat, there could be a million things that are keeping you from squatting perfectly, but you won't know unless you do the assessment. Then once you do the assessment, you can go, okay, I think it may be this, maybe your abs aren't kicking in. So let's put you in a position where your abs are forced to do their job during this plane of motion. So you can, like you said, quadruped squat or bear plank or reverse crunch on a stability ball, something like that, to work them into that. But if you don't do the assessment, you don't know.
yeah. And I think there's a psychology behind it on people who might not be educated on it. The lay person, right? The same
Mhm.
concept comes into, I got tight hamstrings. I have tight hamstrings. And what do? They sit there and stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch. And it's like, dude, if that hamstring if it was going to stretch, it was going to stretch by now. It's not a hamstring issue,
Mhm.
and the same goes with the squat. You hear people say, I'm not good at squatting, so I've been really working on my squat form. And they keep
Mhm.
squatting and squatting and squatting, and they're just slowly wearing those joints out, aren't they?
Yes.
Something's going to crumble. And so if it's not working, quit pushing the limit, quit going. Talk to
Yeah.
somebody, go come at this thing from a different view and let's see how we can get better at a different way.
Yeah.
So
All right. And then I saw also that you guys became the medical sponsor for a racing team or running team. Is that
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Can you tell the listeners a little bit about that? Because I know
Yeah,
you're a runner and a triathlete yourself.
I am, right. So there's a new Speedwalk Racing team is what it is. It's a nonprofit group that just got formed this year. And their main things is they're trying to bring people together who might not need coaching, but want to run as a team, right? So on Wednesdays, they're going to do some speed work. On Sundays, they're going to do a group run. So it's a hodgepodge of people that are looking to find other like-minded people and run and come together as a community. And so I was approached to kind of be a sponsor and just be a part of that group and see how I can provide value. And it just resonated with me that one, I love nonprofit work. I think so much is given to us, we must give back. I'm a firm believer in that. And I think this is a way to just help raise again the tide of we all rise together and everybody's going to benefit at the same time. And so let's do something great for St. Louis, and that's what we're doing.
Well, can you give the listeners kind of like common injuries that you see with runners, especially the amateur runners?
Yeah, I think, man, it's such a good question, right? I mean, the most common is IT band syndrome, right? I think everybody knows what IT band syndrome is. It gets dicey and complicated because more times than not, it is coming from somewhere else.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is it's usually a lack of strength up in the glute, maybe an overactive TFL that's yanking and tugging on the IT band, but they feel it down at their knee, so they think it's an IT band issue. Um, so in a broad spectrum, it's just overuse. It's people that oftentimes are training at too fast of a pace, and they're just running too long way too often.
Mm.
Um, that variation in pace, and I'm a huge advocate for strength work and runners. It just
Uh-huh.
they think running those extra 5 miles on Tuesday rather than going and doing a strength session is going to make them a better runner. And you know the science as much as I do. Unfortunately, that's just we have to build strength if we want to become faster runners. That's.
Can
eh,
you, I mean, because, it's like, I'm like the dad that's always, turn off the lights, close it, we're not air conditioning outside. So, can I get a different commanding voice to share with the listeners? Like, why does strength training help your running?
yeah, strength. So when you hear prime example is right as people get older, they say they're going to have bad knees because they run. Their knees get bad because their quads, hamstrings, calves, and anterior tib are no longer strong enough because they have not put in the supportive strength training to support that knee. So then all of a sudden, femur is mashing on tibia. We lose meniscus, and we end up having knee pain. But if we so everybody thinks the joint is what's wearing out, but if we keep our quads, hamstrings, glutes strong, that force going through your leg is going to be absorbed by big, strong muscles rather than tiny little joints.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's kind of my example of it. It's always an eye-opening experience when that runner who's been running for 10 years finally decides to sit down and talk with a trainer, and all of a sudden they come in and they're like, dude, I just ran a 5K PR. And I'm like, I told you, like I'm so happy for you. I don't want to
Uh-huh.
be right, but I'm happy that you found the person that made you feel better. Um, that's kind of my commanding voice. I don't
Yeah.
see why we aren't strength training. I struggle to comprehend it because we've seen it over and over and over again what
Hmm.
happens. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't remember who said it. I think it was Stuart McGill said it, that like, muscle is designed to absorb force, right? And injuries can occur whenever a force is too great for the muscle to absorb it. And then it goes to the joint, and then the joint has to take the brunt of that force. And that's exactly what you're talking about in that case, because after the age of 30, 35, if you're not actively trying to maintain or attain muscle mass, then it goes.
yeah.
So it's just a matter of time. It's a ticking clock before the force can overwhelm the muscles and go to the joints.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. And not to overwhelm anybody that's listening, I don't think we need to be doing 4 days of strength training year round, right? So let's also break that out. I think
Hmm.
there's a oh man, I'm drawing a blank. We'll get it in the links below. But there is a doc who he talks about. He trains a lot of Kenyans, right? And he's a chiropractor who rehabs a lot of people back to running and everything like that. Um, his big thing is if he can have these elite runners strength training 2 times a week for 2 months out of the entire year, injury rates go down significantly. And so what's 2 times 8, right? 16,
Hmm.
16 strength training workouts in a year, and all of a sudden your risk of injury goes down. It's like that's mind blowing when you start breaking it out to how simple that is.
Right.
Um, and so when some runners hear the word strength training, they think it's the 2 hour long session in the gym moving heavy weight.
Uh-huh.
And let's be more specific, some type of resistance training for 30 to 45 minutes twice a week is where you should start.
Yeah.
That's my understanding of it. So I'd be
Yeah.
curious, what are your thoughts with that?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I agree with you 100%, because it goes back to what you were saying earlier about why runners get injured. It's not, they're not managing the volume of work, right? So anytime your work volume, and work is running, lifting,
Right.
core work, any type of stress on your body is work. So you have to make sure that you're recovering in that time too. And that's rest, that's sleep, proper nutrition, just resting. and you got to be careful. I see a lot of people, oh, this is my active rest day, meaning, oh, I'm just going to go out and run 10 miles. This is my active rest. That's not active rest. That's a workout, buddy. So you have to rest so you can manage that load. And a good friend of mine he was a strength and conditioning coach in the NHL. And then he got hired by the Penguins. I can't remember when, but I do remember I was giving him trouble because I'm like, oh, you're the strength and conditioning coach for the Penguins? He said, no, I'm the director of science and training. And I was like, wow, you got a big head. Who gave you that title? And so I was giving him all kinds of grief, but basically what his job is to manage the training load for the team. So they have all of these kind of biometrics, this biofeedback, in addition to some kind of just observation. And so he looks at their heart rate variability, their BP, the workload they did in the weight room, the workload they did on the ice in practice, the workload in the game, the schedule, all of that. And then he makes recommendations to the coaching staff. No practice today, light practice today, no lift today, light lift today, whatever it may be, whatever the data is telling him to manage their load. The first year he had that position, and that was the Penguins were the first team in the NHL to have that position. They won the cup. They won the Stanley Cup that year. So I forget what year was, if you go back, and then they won it the second year. They won it back-to-back years. So guess what happened? Every team in the NHL has that position now. Yeah. So it's become an accepted science in the world of high performance sport. So now we just have to wait for it to trickle down to the weekend warriors and the amateur athletes. But it's the same principles, the same concept. It's about managing your load. So getting back to your question about the strength training, if you've never done strength training before in your life and now you want to start, don't jump in at 4 days a week. It's too much. Yeah. It'll be detrimental. Start with, I say 1 day a week is maintenance. I'd say 2 days a week is usually good enough to make progress, depending on all the other factors that are draining from your finite pool of energy.
Right. Right.
So I would just say,
mom, right? I mean, that drains. So like that has to be a factor. It's not just look at Monday to Sunday and what type of exercise should we do on every day. You got to look at some of these other factors of, I have 5 kids. I run a business. I have travel. So I'm getting on and off a plane, like all of that, all that goes into that calculation, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you have to pay attention to all of those factors. You can't ignore it. Like say, I can't tell you the amount of time, and I've done this, where I've been sleep deprived, say I'm traveling, I'm sleep deprived and my nutrition hasn't been the best. And I'm like, oh man, I got to get a workout in and it's scheduled to be a hard workout. I got to do it. And I go and I do it and the workout sucks and I feel worse afterwards. And if I'm lucky, I don't find some kind of injury or tweak something during that workout, where in reality, I would have been probably better off taking a nap, and resting myself, and that's just the hindsight of experience. But yeah, absolutely. You have to take all of those factors into account. And it helps tremendously to have a coach, somebody that you can bounce ideas off of to say, hey, this is what, I got, 6 hours sleep. I got a busy schedule with my kids today. I got a presentation that I have to finish up and do for work tomorrow. What kind of workout should I do? I'm thinking maybe you should just meditate and knock all that stuff out. And then once you clear your plate, then come in and we'll do a training session or something along those lines. But like we've been talking about, you have to take in the whole picture, like my buddy Andy O'Brien with the Pittsburgh Penguins. You have to take everything into effect if you want to achieve a goal, whatever that goal, whether it be the Stanley Cup or, getting into, your jeans and looking better in your jeans.
Yeah. Oh, and I think
Yeah.
I can't agree more with you. And it's funny how this all ties back to the main point of the beginning of our conversation, right? An
Uh-huh.
assessment to
Right.
pull it all together and let's see where do we start, and where do we start chipping away? And that's how
Hmm.
fitness is too. Where do you start and start chipping away? And don't start like with this huge goal in mind, because unfortunately, just like New Year's resolutions, we will fall short. I think
Yeah.
we know that. So
Yeah.
I love how it's both clinically how we look at the whole picture, and fitness how we look at the whole picture, and that
Hmm.
justifies how much, where, when, and how and why of whatever we're going to do. So,
Yeah.
which I think comes with repetition, right? You
Hmm.
didn't start
Consistency. Yeah.
understanding all of that, right? I
Hmm.
think, and so with repetition, and as you start understanding how the human body works over and over and over again, and more exposure you get, you start seeing how the bigger picture actually applies. So,
Yeah. Your health and fitness is no different than anything else in your life. It's no different than your education, planning your education. Whenever you go to college, you have an idea of what degree you want to get and where you want to go with that degree. So you have a plan, you have a structure. When you're talking about your financial health and you meet with your financial manager or your stock picker person, you have a plan, you approach it and you stick to the plan and you're consistent. Same thing when you are cooking dinner. You have to go to the grocery store and you have a list of ingredients you have to get, in order to prep. So it's no different. So I say that to say, don't rely on willpower to do this. Set yourself up for success. And what I mean by that is it's in the calendar. You have appointments. You have somebody that holds you accountable to all of those things other than yourself. You have an accountability partner. All of those things, because willpower will fail you. I tell clients all the time, if the cookies are in the house, you're going to eat them, right? So make sure, like, if you don't want to eat the cookies, don't bring them in the house, right? Because willpower will fail you. Set yourself up on a schedule and set yourself up for success by incorporating it into your schedule and planning it. I tell people it's like a rock in a river. Everything flows around it. Life still goes on, but this is set. This is what grounds me and enables me to do everything else that I want to do in my life.
yep, yep. No, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. You've used that analogy before, and I just love it every time you say it, man.
Yeah.
It you know,
Yeah. All right. So, well, Doc, this has been great. And, like I said, I'm a big fan. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. You've kept this Humpty Dumpty body together for a long time and continue to do so. So where can people find you, get more information, reach out to you, all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Website, Donahue Chiropractic, STL.com. We have email on there, a contact form, reach out, Facebook, Instagram, Donahue Chiropractic. We try and provide content, right? We want to educate the masses, and that is what we are trying to do, and just show that there are determined providers that are there to actually help listen and provide value to you as a patient. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing I really like about your website, I don't know if I told you, I think I may have told you this in passing, but the thing I really like about your website is it's really easy to make an appointment on your website. There's absolutely very little friction. And I think that is awesome. I really enjoy that. So if you get a chance, check out his website. And if you're a new patient, it's real easy to set an appointment, go in and see Dr. Donahue, and I definitely recommend it. So, Doc, and all of those links will be in the show notes. Go to catalyststl.com/podcast, and all the links to contact the doc will be right there. So, Doc, thanks a lot. I look forward to welcome to the team. I'm glad to have you on the team and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Great. Thanks, Jim. This was fun. We'll catch up
Yeah,
next time, man.
you got it, buddy. Have a good weekend.